Before there were streaming services, even before vinyl, black music was pressed onto 78 RPM records. As we wrap up our celebration of Black Music Appreciation Month, Tyshawn Dawson introduces us to one Wichita Falls man who is making it his mission to take us back in time.
These aren't just records, they're time machines. At 78 revolutions per minute, they spin not just music, but memories. And for Justin Good, preserving them is a mission to keep black musical history alive.
It's a step back in time, honestly. When you listen to music that was made 100 years ago, 80 years ago, even if you didn't grow up during those years, you can imagine what it was like in those years and you in the shoes of your parents or your grandparents.
Through his store, Antique 78 RPM, Good is giving new life to old sounds.
I think it's important to talk about three genres: jazz, blues, and gospel. In jazz, there's two giant figures, Louis Armstrong and Duke Ellington.
Louis Armstrong's trumpet lit the fire. Duke Ellington gave it sophistication. Both legends immortalized on 78 RPMs.
The way Louis Armstrong played, how he soloed, how he sang, once people heard that, that changed all of music all over the world after that. Now there's also Duke Ellington. Duke Ellington is one of the greatest American composers of the 20th century. He was inspired by early jazz, like most of the people in the 20s. He ended up in Harlem, and he and his house band became the biggest band at the Cotton Club.
And you can't talk about jazz without talking about blues and one of its innovators, T-Bone Walker.
T-Bone was one of the first people to play electric guitar, and he used that through the 40s, and that changed how post-war blues was played. And one of his first songs at his first session that he cut was Wichita Falls Blues, which he recorded as Oak Cliff T-Bone in 1929. And as I understand it, that's the first song that's got Wichita Falls in its title.
But even T-Bone wasn't as iconic as Bessie Smith, a female voice in a male-dominated industry.
Bessie Smith was known as the Empress of the Blues. She recorded nearly 150 songs from 1923 to 1933. She inspired so many people. And one large figure that most people know in this area is Bob Wills from Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys. Bob Wills once rode 50 miles on horseback to go watch the Empress of the Blues play.
You see, that's the power of music. It moves people, it inspires, and sometimes it exposes.
78s, there's a lot of protest songs. There are people stood up on their platform through music to talk about, society. And, one of the largest ones was Billie Holiday's Strange Fruit. It was a poem, but it was about all the lynchings in the South in the 30s.
Although music brings joy to many, most of the music back then was rooted in pain. Pain that brought people closer to God. Which brings us to gospel.
Sister Rosetta Tharpe is called the godmother of rock and roll. Many people were inspired by her. Elvis, Bob Dylan, also Little Richard.
Another artist inspired by gospel is Ray Charles.
One of his biggest hits is I've Got a Woman, and that was actually pulled from a group, the Southern Tones. It Must Be Jesus. It's almost a carbon copy of the song, how it's played, how it's sung, all the phrasing. Ray Charles ripped them off, and he made that, but that's just what everybody did. They were inspired by others, and that's how music was and is made.
Jazz, blues, and gospel. Their voices built the soundtrack of America, and thanks to 78s and the people preserving them, with the drop of a needle, we can take a trip to the past.